All right, let's watch the video now of him. He did the circuit, did a couple interviews after he announced, did one with Alex Michelson. He did a full one, but this is a clip talking about affordability, which seems to be the centerpiece of his campaign. And then we'll comment after that.
Too expensive to live in California for a lot of people, right? That housing affordability.
It is.
All the rest of that. But whose fault is that? Because Democrats have had a supermajority in Sacramento for decades now, run every statewide office. Isn't that the Democrats' fault?
Well, it's a growing issue. Remember, we've had Republican governors as well.
Yeah,
Arnold
Schwarzenegger was elected in 2006.
Yeah, I guarantee you, homes in California in 2006 were too expensive back then.
I know, but it's gone up a lot in the last 20 years.
We have not.
2006 was an expensive year for housing at the time. My husband and I had just gotten married and we were looking to buy a house, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and he didn't have credit, as in not bad credit, but like he had never used a credit card in his life. We didn't qualify because we just I didn't have an income, he didn't have credit, and we were everything we were looking at in Orange County was like in the 600,000 range, which was at that time super crazy expensive. Still in today, interest rates, I don't even remember what they were yet. I have a question for you though, and I don't
Sure.
have the answer for this, but just want to hear your thoughts. Right now, a lot of the candidates they're talking about affordability, and do you think these things are actually affecting them now, or that they've just gotten so much pushback from everyone else talking about affordability that they're like, maybe we need to take advantage of that and start talking about that?
I think a lot of these top contenders have very expensive polling companies and consultants who probably go out and do internal polls, and they say, what is the top issue facing California voters? And affordability probably is at the top. I would always say it's always at the top. So they base their messaging around that. I don't think it affects anybody like this. Like Xavier Becerra was just recently Secretary of Health and Human Services. He was previously Attorney General. I don't think the guy's hurting for affordability. Maybe Katie Porter is, because she records all her videos on a flip phone. Most of these candidates know. I think they're just doing the polling and they're looking at the tea leaves and they go, affordability is what they want us to run on. Got it. Okay. But they don't really have any solution to affordability. And I think Alex Michelson, he takes his knocks for being not, he gets a lot of great interviews. He talks to the governor a lot. He gets a lot of pushback, or he gets a lot of flack because he does not push back on a lot of people. We met Alex at an event. He was a nice guy. But this time he actually pushed back, and I saw that video and I was like, yeah, there hasn't been a Republican governor. And him trying to slosh it off and be like, there's been Republican governors in there as well. Just for reference, okay, Schwarzenegger got in because of the recall and was in until 2011. Before that, it was Pete Wilson, which was the early 90s. Like that was Pete Wilson's time. This is long before I ever came to California. I was just a kid at that time. And then before that, it was George. If you guys can help me with this pronunciation, Duke Maney.
It's funny, we just discussed this because of a whole Reddit thread that I think we were both maybe accidentally on. Not that we were accidentally on it, but we didn't realize we were reading the same thread. And now I'm like, information is escaping me. I swear the news cycle every day, it's so crazy that I'm like, I don't even know what happened yesterday. I only know
it's a lot.
I know what's going on today.
So to put it in perspective, let's lay the groundwork why Xavier Becerra's whole, there are Republican governors in there as well, is complete BS. The last time the Republicans held both houses of the legislature was back in 1969 and 1975, like a short window of time was the last time Republicans actually held both chambers of our legislature. Okay. 1975 was the last time.
That's nearly 50 years ago. We were not alive yet. That's
no. And if you're blaming the faults of California affordability on Republicans controlling both the Assembly and the State Senate 50 years ago, that's a problem. The next time Republicans actually controlled a chamber, not both chambers, just a chamber, was for 1 year around 95 and 96. That was it.
Assembly.
That was literally it. And since then, it has been Democrats controlling the legislature since 96. And between that time, there was one Republican governor who was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'm pregnant.
And was he a Ronald Reagan super conservative governor? I wouldn't think so. From what I know, he was mostly a moderate Republican, probably, people called him a rhino. He was just like mostly a conservative Democrat at that point. So that's it. So in that span of time between, if you want to go all the way back to 2011 and say, since 2011, well, that's why we have housing affordability crisis, because Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2011, it's like you're really grasping at straws to try and put any blame outside on Democrats, which is why, again, I think Alex Michelson, I give him props that he pushed back on this. Is like, are you kidding? Like, you guys have had a super majority. You've controlled every state office for more than 30 years or 20 years. Like, it has not been a Republican state in a very, very long time. And just for sort of the visual aid here, this is what I found when I was looking this up. So this is some Fred economic data. You can go look this up. They have a lot of data. So if you can go down, this is the housing index, goes all the way back to 1980, 1975. Look at that. That's the housing index way back down there in 41. Every gray section is the recession. So this is right around the time that Arnold Schwarzenegger was done. Q4 of 2011, right? What does the price do after Arnold Schwarzenegger leaves?
And this is Enter Jerry Brown, correct?
Enter Jerry Brown, and then Gavin Newsom. So it went from down here with Schwarzenegger, right? 385 to all the way up here. My mouse can't even go that far. That's it. 968. So almost triple since Schwarzenegger has left. The housing price index for California is tripled. And even here, you're right. Like real estate, yes, real estate does go up. It was a slow progression. There was the housing boom. Yes, this is where, right here, obviously, this was subprime mortgages, and this is why we had the collapse. But if you look again, Arnold Schwarzenegger left office Q4, and then this is the trajectory of housing affordability. I don't even think from here to, based on the subprime, that was the only other time it tripled. And then there was a huge collapse.
I kind of mentioned, which this is specific to West Oakland, not the entire state of California, but I have this as a highlight on my Instagram page because I did a deep dive into this a couple years ago. There was an article I read about, had to do with equity, like climate change equity in West Oakland. And I did a deep dive into like, why are they suffering so badly? And it was like racism in housing economics and other policies over decades. Like people were complaining. Okay, so I started researching, and West Oakland used to be this very thriving, well-to-do area with lots of like lawyers and doctors and stuff. And it was booming for other reasons. Again, I don't want to get too far into this because whatever. But what I found was that there was policies that were enacted. California legislature was Democrat-controlled, congressional was Democrat-controlled, and there was just things that they were being pushed out basically, and they were kind of like they built freeways around this specific area of West Oakland, and these housing policies that went on. And the Housing Act of 1949 was an expansion of the federal role in mortgage insurance and public housing. It was part of President Harry Truman's Fair Deal. And in Congress, the bill was sponsored by Robert Taft, Republican, and Democrats Alan Allender and Robert Wagner. And it was passed by the 81st United States Congress. The House majority was Democrat that session. So again, I'm just kind of like quickly trying to read here. So I had written, fact, with the exception of a very brief period from 1995 to 1996, the California Assembly has been controlled by Democrats since the 1970 election. Fact, the California Senate has been controlled by Democrats since the 1970 election. These policies are literally driving people out and driving up housing costs and mortgages. And there was I went into some bills that Nancy Skinner had authored and just stuff like that. And it was they often blame Republicans, but they don't go back and look at the policies that were actually enacted and voted on that started this whole domino effect, which was passed by Democrats. And I'm not saying Republicans never do anything bad. That's not what I'm saying. But in this instance, there was a whole lot of things going on that were being passed by Democrats that started this issue.
Even more, it's trying to pass the buck to any Republican for affordability right now in 2025 in California is wild, because it's they haven't had control or influence at all. And in fact, even though, yes, you've put these policies in place, you've also had the supermajority and everyone in control of all levers of power that you could have fixed it. If these were bad policies, in Xavier Becerra's words, you could have scrubbed them.
Scrub, damn it!
You could have fixed them. You've had there's nothing standing in your way. If you all came around and were like, hey, let's fix affordability and make houses better, you could have done it. You've had 20 plus years.
Trump 120 times. Why weren't you suing the issue, whoever that was causing these bad policies?
Yeah, why weren't you looking into why housing is so unaffordable in California? So to blame it on Republicans even remotely is wild to me. And there are people on Reddit who are like,
actually,
no, the Republican governors definitely have some blame in this. And it's what world do you live in that Republican governor like Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2011 had anything to do with why no one can buy a house in California?
Right.
That is some immense major league copium to be like, it's not our fault. There was Republicans in there as well. They did some stuff too. And it's no, you've had control. We literally have a shirt online on our store. You can go check it out. It literally says, if progressive policies worked, California would be a utopia. And the truth is they don't. And we've seen it firsthand, but they refuse. Number one rule in politics. Well, number one rule is you always follow the money. Number two is that politicians will never, ever, ever, ever admit that they were wrong and go back on a policy. And that's where we're at in California. Is you have a ton of Democrats who supported a lot of these bad policies in the past, now have to kind of buckle down and be like, no, these are good policies. These are really good policies. We just have to tweak them. And it's you can just admit defeat and be like, these didn't work. And we have to move on